But, as we're talking, I mean, we know that that's a match we're likely going to see at SummerSlam. I don't know, man. I don't know where the story goes from here. There's still there's obviously still a Roman Solo dynamic, and then there's still a Roman Paul Heyman dynamic. And I think that we are far enough in this story that, and we can just kind of riff on this. Who's the next Paul Heyman guy or Paul Heyman girl? I mean, Roman came out of left field, but we're so far into this story that we're closer to the end than we are at the beginning. And you have to think that once Bloodline is done, Paul's involvement with Roman is done. Because we've given Theory a lot of shit.
I was just about to say name. I was just about to say
that could be an interesting name.
You know who could use him the most is Austin Theory. I was just about to say that. Yeah, because he. I mean, you know who else would be very, very good to have Paul Heyman with is a Braun Breaker.
I don't necessarily hate his mic work now. I think he needs some refining, but I think he's much better as a heel than a white meat babyface.
So you say that. How much does Paul talk for Roman now?
That's true.
Not a ton.
That's a good point.
He's just kind of he's there to get the rub, right? So Braun can still cut those promos, but having Paul out there doing the intro of the lineage of the Breaker, the Steiner name, and kind of
let's just keep it. Let's just keep it at the last name. We don't need to mention any fathers now.
What's that? And like he has that history with the Steiners as it is.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Like, hey, I worked with your dad and your uncle way back in the day in WCW, and he can kind of play that up like he does with Roman now about how I knew your family. I knew you when you were small. Like maybe he knew Braun when he was a small kid. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That could be a fun dynamic. NXT wise, like, is there anybody else in NXT you could think of? I don't really know.
So this one's going to be a little bit out there, and I know that it is. And I said this in my NXT recap video out on YouTube. Go watch it if you haven't yet. But Ivy Nile is at that sink or swims point, in the singles run right now. And while she's got and I'd love to hear him. I mean, I think she's a physical specimen that still a little rough around the edges. So I there's no reason to not keep her in NXT for a while. But she is eventually going to have to make that transition to the main roster. This could be a way to do that. Maybe something involving Shayna Baszler as well.
Yeah,
people that are not necessarily great talkers, but Heyman can very easily do that with two blue chip prospects.
And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the tag match between Schism and the Creed brothers.
Yes.
Was Ivy Nile at ringside?
She was not. No, and they played that up this week that they're gone and she's still there.
And who cost them that match? Somebody in a mask that we don't know.
It's true.
You think that could be her?
No, that person was too big. Whoever it was that was in the mask.
It's wrestling, man. You can play around with that. How many ghost face did Johnny Gargano have when he was with the Way, and it turned out to be Austin Theory?
There was also that whole thing.
You can play that up.
Retribution, and they didn't know who were going to be under the mask. Okay, that's a good point. I'll give you that. But I think the question then becomes, what's the motivation to get them sent from NXT, knowing that they're just going to get called up to the main roster?
Well, I mean, if you think too logically about wrestling, you're going to hurt your brain, right?
I'm doing all right now.
I don't know, man. Ivy Nile, like, she's, and I don't want to be mean when I say this. She just kind of feels like a Dana Brooke.
Come on.
Like she's a great physical, like you said, great physical specimen, but like in the ring, she's all right. It's been a while since she's been in the ring too. Like, she's okay. She just kind of feels like another one to throw in the women's division. Like, I don't see a huge future with her personally.
Okay. So outside of Austin Theory and Ivy Nile, is there anybody else that immediately comes to mind that could benefit from a Paul Heyman rub?
I mean, I can't. I'm trying. You kind of caught me off guard. I'm kind of racking my brain with this one, but does he go over to Solo?
I can see that.
Like,
I mean, we've seen Paul Heyman turn on guys before. I mean, there was that stretch with Brock, Big Show, Kurt Angle, and those were all within a month of each other. You know, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for him. Or do we see? I mean, I personally would love to see a new dangerous alliance. Paul Heyman doesn't need to be just one person. That's a whole lot of creative that just could be used elsewhere.
And you know who would be the top guy in that new dangerous alliance?
Hit me.
Cody Rhodes. Yeah.
Excuse me, everybody. I had to clutch my invisible pearls there for a second. Explain yourself.
I mean, just fantasy booking. You remember when Cody cut the promo? JD's going to leave you. Jimmy's going to leave you. Solo's going to leave you. Paul's going to leave you because you don't have the title anymore. Who takes the title off Roman? It's Paul, because we never saw, Roman going with Paul. We never saw.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, when Punk first won the title and then went to the heel turn, that was a surprise when he went with Paul Heyman. Right?
Yeah.
Like, Cody's as hot as he's going to get. And what's the old cliche? When they're just at the top of their level as hot, you turn them